Okay, we are back. We are back. We're just checking our tech here. We want to make sure we are good before we bring in Don DeBar. Excited about this conversation here. Okay, guys, thanks for joining us. If you're joining us late, you guys know that you can always go back and watch our live stream. We keep them all up on Rumble. We never take them down. 97 episodes as of today. They're all available on our Rumble. You just go to the Rumble channel and you click on live, and you can go back and watch all of them. I wouldn't suggest doing that. If you guys wanted to do a marathon of all 97, that would be literally insane. I would never recommend doing that. But just so you know, it's all there. It's all archived on Rumble. They never pulled the plug on us there. It's a surveillance state for sure. There's also some shadow banning, just like we know it's definitely shadow banning on X, definitely. But they never pull our plug. So that's good. Unlike YouTube, who loves to pull our plug. And that's why we had to start this new channel, THL Presents on YouTube, because our old channel, The Homeless Left on YouTube, no longer exists. Why doesn't it exist anymore? That's weird. Because Google, YouTube decided we were too dangerous for the community and terminated our channel. So you're going to have to find it on THL Presents now on YouTube. Again, we have to be careful on there about what we can post, what we can't. We have to take the lives down usually after, but you can find all of our work on Rumble. And then we put the segments up as well. A few days later, we'll generally try to get all the segments up from the previous show. So it's very, you guys can always go back and watch those. And if you missed, the whole show, we're on for a long time, obviously 3-4 hours sometimes. But yes, you can always go and find us on Rumble and then Twitter X at The Homeless Left. On Rumble, again, all of our segments uploaded independently for you guys. You might be more interested in one subject than another, so you can always go there and just choose your topic. Enjoy. They're all about 5 to 20 minutes average. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. Okay, we're moving on right now. Make sure we're good. Okay, I think we're all good to go. Let's go ahead and bring in our next guest. I'm going to call him a guest co-host today, just because he's been on so many times with us. It's not so much an interview anymore. We're having conversations. We feel like he's part of the team now, for sure. Absolutely. Been with us, helping us out as we've been getting going and developing this channel for the last 2 years. And Don's been a big part of, especially recently in the last year. So we love having him back to talk about what's happening right now in the world of stocks and in the world of tariffs and the world of what the hell is happening in the economy right now, and the war machine that's been all pro-war ever since Trump got in, but way before that too. As he knows very well, he's been doing this way longer than us. We look up to him a lot as an independent journalist. Please welcome back to the show, Don DeBar.
Hey. How you doing?
What's up, Matt? Hey, Don. Hey,
I'm all right. Good. Excuse the set. I'm my studio's still under construction until tomorrow, and so I'm kind of finding a safe port in the house where it's not too bright and not too noisy.
Good. No, we can hear you fine. You're good. You're always on the go. We always got. We did that one show with you from Milwaukee. We've met up in Chicago. Yeah. We're always like it's so crazy because I feel like me coming from Hollywood, and like I've always been in these small spaces of having to maneuver through to get to your audience and backstage. Yeah. And I was cool being backstage with you in Chicago because I was like, hey, I know this thing. This is but now we're doing it in journalism together. And there you were, we got all the wires. We got to get our sound right, and we're about to go live. I love it. I love that adrenaline rush of getting everything in gear. And we work with what we got, and we make the background work.
That's right.
We make sure we got sound, but we're ready to go. We're ready to have the conversation. So yeah, it's fun doing this with you, Don.
Same.
Yeah, very cool. So let's just do a brief update on this. And I want you to take it from here after. I'm just going to remind people what we're living through right now. We've seen this before with the stock market. We've had our situation with 2008. We guys know that one well. The too big to fail. The banks were too big to fail in 08. We saw in COVID, the beginning of COVID, Trump was president. Don't forget, everyone. Trump was president when the CARES Act went through, when all the small businesses were shut down. So we're talking about these big overnight or couple day massive drops in the stock. So we're seeing this in the stock market right now. This is the worst stock market crash since 2008. And it's currently unfolding. So we're kind of just trying to figure this out in real time. This is just as of April 3rd, a few days ago. We knew that this is according to DD Geopolitics, nearly $3 trillion in stock value was wiped out from the U.S. markets. Biggest single day loss since COVID crash. There you go, the COVID crash of 2020, which was totally by accident. We know that was not man-made. That was not by design. That just sometimes shit happens. The collapse follows a wave of sweeping tariffs imposed yesterday by the Trump administration, triggering panic and over speculation. And then we have this map of today's bloodbath. You guys are not going to be able to see all these. There's a ton of them. They're all in red. This all means bad. The ones on the left, you guys can see Google down, Microsoft down, Apple, Facebook, Meta, Netflix, all of it. This is on and on and on. Amazon there down the bottom middle. There's so many, all in red. This was just a few days ago again. And then here's Trump, a little quick clip of Trump talking about how he doesn't care about inflation.
That's it.
Sir, when we get into late summer, early fall, and people are doing their back-to-school shopping, do you think they'll have inflation to worry about at that point?
I think there's not going to be. I don't think inflation's going to be a big deal because if you look at me, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars. This is not new to me. I took in during my 4 years hundreds of billions of dollars from China. And we also took in a lot of money from other countries, but in particular China, because it was just getting started. And we had no inflation. Who had inflation was Biden. Biden had the worst inflation in the history of our country. I had no inflation. We had a perfect country. We had no war.
So to me, this seems like the same playbook as when Bush passed the baton to Obama. It's just reverse. It's just the red to blue. This time it's blue to red. It's one administration blaming the other, but we see the same problem. It doesn't really matter who's in charge. But at this point, yes, there's a lot of people saying that these tariffs, we haven't seen anything like this before, but it's about blaming the previous administration and then being America first and the too big to fail we saw from Obama when the Bush passed that baton over. And we're kind of seeing this again on a more massive scale because these tariffs are larger than we've ever seen ever before. Don, can you tell us, is this something brand new we've never seen before, or is it more the playbook we see every time an administration passes the baton? What are we actually experiencing right now?
Well, there's some kind of restructuring on the minds of the people that make policy here that is being received by the people who rode the last construct into their position as something that could shake them out of their position. And so they're treating it like they just got stabbed in the eye. You know, I don't know how to, and lots of people have theories, but believe me, none of them know either. I don't know how to identify the members of whatever the elite, the power, whatever, by name, social security number, clique designation. But there are some diverse interests that are, being played out here that are rocking somebody's boat. And they either rode in with Trump or they're symbolized by Trump or the fact that people believe all that to be true has allowed them to play their game under the cover of Trump and Trump and anti-Trumpism or whatever. But something is going on here where people who were comfortable before these changes in policy were announced feel exposed. And they're expressing it. You have to keep in mind when you're talking about the markets reacting to something, the heavy concentration of ownership and management of the actual, devices that are being traded, the stocks and derivatives and every other damn thing that's, part of these indices that we're looking at. It's not like you have millions of people making decisions, okay? You might have millions of people that have equity in those markets, but a handful of people make buy and sell decisions on a daily basis. A lot of them are made out of silicon, by the way. And so when there's what appears to be a reaction to some policy decision, what you're really doing is seeing someone make decisions about buying and selling as a response to it, which may or may not have, some further motive than just, profit taking or, hedging or whatever. In other words, regular investor reactions to it, but rather some, power struggle or other game that's going on. So, if you're comfortable in an environment where, the corporate profits are where they are, and the relationship in terms of trade, in terms of, the deindustrialization that exists in this country, et cetera, remain where they are or intensify, then you don't want to see that model being disrupted. Now, for better or worse, whether working people are going to be better off or not, as Trump promises and others, whether that's true or not, certainly there's going to be some changes that are going to affect the interests of some people who are heavily invested in the way things are right now, if this is allowed to be expressed. And there's an all-out battle to stop it from being expressed. Lawsuits, a massive media campaign. I mean, I don't get why it is that every time one of these things happens and the entire media says that it's bad and dangerous, that people don't understand that they're looking at some sort of a response from vested interests that have control over the media. I mean, we talk about being, bringing truth in media and all of this because of the fact that the corporate media is bullshit and that it's nothing but a public relations machine for power. And then as it spews nonsense on a daily basis, we deal with that as if it's reality.
Yeah.
Instead of it's somebody's press release, printer spewing stuff to deal with the issues that are important to the people that own it.
Yeah.
We want to talk about people are talking all over about tariffs as if they understand anything about economics. Tariffs are one tiny piece of a giant thing called the global economy and national economies and regional economies. You've got industrial production and agricultural production and services and finance and all these different things that are fractured and unified in all different sizes and shapes and colors. And then a nation state that happens to have had, I would say, a somewhat affluent, market for goods and services from around the world decides they're going to make some changes in the tax policy that's intended to make some changes in the distribution of production and along the lines that they're advertising. And all of a sudden, everybody's an expert. Tariffs will do this or won't do that. In what context? Will it do it here and not there? Well, it's not 1920 anymore. No shit. Really? It's not? It's 105 years later, right? My calendar's up to date, too. I figured that out without a Windows update. So what does that mean besides some glib bullshit about it's not 1920 anymore? So it's not 1928 and Woodrow Wilson, what's his name? Who's the knucklehead that was there for the Depression? Isn't president anymore. He supposedly ran on tariffs, bringing tariffs back. No big deal. The experts that were saying for Herbert Hoover, he was crazy to want to bring increased tariffs and reconfigure the economy back towards protectionism and domestic industrial production, etc. All those experts that said he was wrong are the same experts that were guiding the economy that crashed in 1929. And people are now conflating those two things. Well, Herbert Hoover ran with those. And we know, of course, how things turned out with him. It's like, well, yeah, actually, he ran with that. He didn't get to do it. The people that were opposed to it institutionally were the same people that were running the institutional economy. As a matter of fact, They're exactly like the people who are making the buy and sell decisions on Wall Street right now. So if there's a crash, is it because Trump said something about tariffs and they try to implement a different tax policy? They try to dissuade or encourage or get involved in. I'm not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent what they're doing, but I'm saying the conversation about it is completely decontextualized from the entire rest of any kind of real discussion of real economics in any depth. It's very easy and glib to point out that this particular thing or that is going to provoke the kind of things you see like between Washington and Beijing right now, for example. Okay, yeah, that's true. If Trump announces, or anybody announces, that we are going to change our business relationship, our tax policy, our some other, relationship with this country or that country, say with China, then adversely, because we consider them to be an adversary or a competitor, and we want to improve our position vis-a-vis theirs in the international stage or in our own market or in their market and all of the above or something else. Well, there has to be a response from Beijing, not just because of what might happen, because you can sit down and figure out like, all right, we need to do this. How about what do you need here? You can make deals, and deals will be made at some point anyway when the grown-ups are talking, and they're probably talking in the back room. But there's a domestic political consideration as well. The Chinese government cannot be seen in front of the Chinese people as taking a bunch of shit from Washington and not doing anything about it. And so you have a tit for tat conversation going on in the media, across the mediascape. Maybe it means something, but there's also a heavy element of just feeding domestic politics that's involved. This is part of the landscape. And again, so we're going to do 24% tariffs on Chinese goods. And we're going to do 24% too. This looks great in the press. What's actually going to happen is what's going to happen. We're going to see that later. Mm-hmm. But the idea that because Trump is crazy and seizing power, beyond the scope of the imperial presidency or whatever, and therefore he's about to wreck the global economy, and he's already wrecking the markets. Just take a look. It's a crock of shit. If you actually look at the front page of the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times today, you will see that the depths that had never been plumbed before of the markets, it went up and down and up and down. And if you look at over the last couple of days, it's the same thing. There are some people who have decided to dump large numbers of stock, not such a big loss, by the way, but enough to dump them. They're sitting on it. So some people are waiting for this to actually play out to buy now, because when you play these games, there are opportunities for people to buy,
buy
with a 5% discount over what it was last week or whatever. I make 5%. If I throw $100,000 in, I made $5,000. If I throw $10 million in, I make $50,000. Whatever.
Yeah,
$500,000.
Yeah.
So is it as sold in the press right now? I don't think so. And I think the level of conversation, even in the Wall Street Journal, and some of the other trades that are a little closer to the actual business, even they're pretty thin right now on actual economic, real economy conversation.
Yeah. Well, looking at what the mainstream media is, their job is, I mean, it's very clear, and like you mentioned this in your take here, that when you put the blame on a guy who's power hungry and looking to just destroy things because he's unstable, this is what gets people riled up and more likely to get out in the streets when you're doing this like hands-off rally we saw over the weekend, and that the mainstream media can push that narrative that we have to stop this one guy, he's out of control. So they're purposely misreporting on how this stuff works. If they were to, Don, like I suspect that, let's say just one day they decided to be honest about this and talk about the billionaire class that's actually pulling the strings and making the decisions on what, like you're saying, the printing, the just overprinting, the nonstop, as to borrow a phrase from RFK Jr., a blank check, right, to the billionaire class. They can just write as many checks as they want, print as much money as they want. This idea that the inflation rate, you just make whatever decision you want at any given time. If they were to report that accurately, we would have to have a larger conversation. The public would be forced to look at this beyond one insane person that has seized power and start looking at the corruption of our system, and that the stock market itself is a complete theater piece designed to let the billionaire class puppeteer the rest of us. And they do so on a timeline that fits a narrative that the mainstream media can push, that when a new president comes into power. And so I was mentioning about the too big to fail. I don't think it was a coincidence that the 08 thing happened, the 08 stock market crash happened right on the change of power. And then you pass this baton from Bush to Obama, and Obama just did the thing. He kicked 5.4 million people out of their houses, and the media played along with the game that it was good. Thank God Obama took over because Bush was the one destroying everything. And so it's just, you have this game back and forth. So they know what they're doing. They're deliberate about it. So we have to have these actual conversations and really talk about what is happening. These tariffs are, they're good, they're bad, they're good, they're bad. We're not going to really know what's happening next, but we do know that the billionaire class is playing games with us. And like you said, I think maybe the takeaway here is, maybe if things are low and you can get a 5% return, maybe you can get something out of this if you time your stuff well and stop listening to the mainstream media telling you it's this unstable guy doing all this horrible stuff. We just got to get rid of him, but everything will be back to normal the way it was. So that's my take. Your thoughts on that?
Well, no, let's go to normal first of all. What is normal?
What is normal?
Normal. Let's say last year was normal. Normal last year, again, for I don't know, 20, 30 years in a row, somewhere just shy of 10 million people in the world died of starvation each year. So that's normal. Normal is what's happened in Gaza in let's say all of last year. Normal is what's happening in Ukraine now for 3 years. With it being at the threshold of a nuclear war with Russia. It was normal when the U.S. was engaging in cat and mouse games and brinkmanship in the South China Sea with China's Navy. Is normal the installation of THAAD missiles in Korea that threaten Russia's ability to retaliate in a nuclear exchange and therefore threaten Russia with a first strike. Normal is just a word that means this is what has been happening, and it's an average more or less of of various behaviors sort of moshed into some homogeneous soup without really evaluating the value of the things that constitute it. Normal in a homicidal society means people are getting killed every day. Normal isn't necessarily desirable, or normal isn't necessarily optimum for the people that are involved in the set. And so normal behavior in an economy where working people are impoverished at a greater rate every day, and in a situation that's lasted at least 45, 50 years now, where the middle class, so-called, has in essence evaporated, where people that hold any equity outside of a small, band of people outside of the ownership class, the tiny ownership class, are the only ones who really hold any equity, in the middle band. That something like 80% of the value of this economy, in any event, and Europe, and outside of, put it this way, in the empire, in the U.S., UK, EU, Japan, Korea, something like 80% of the value is held by somewhere between 1% and 5% of the people, leaving not much for the rest of us. That's the normal operation of this
Yeah.
economy.
Yeah.
Is that something that we're supposed to hold out as the standard that we measure everything else by? In other words, if it's not like this, it's bad. If someone is looking to exchange that, I go back to I told you and Pasta about this. I think probably a couple times over the last couple of years. When I went to the RNC in Cleveland in 2016, my friends that are involved in various groupings, organized organizations, social justice, anti-war, anti-racist organizations that do very good work. Everyone was frightened that Trump was the next Hitler in 2015, 2016, and that the U.S. election was sort of a replay of the 1932 German presidential election. This was the bullshit that was being fed at the time out of just about every pore of the body of the American political economy, the media, the politicians, the folks that lecturing at church and synagogue, whatever. You go on the street, the kids selling lemonade. Everybody had this pretty much the same story that they were spewing, and so I had heard from my friends that are involved in organizing and have been for years. We're going to shut down the RNC. We can't allow this to happen. So I'm going to the RNC and the DNC like I do every 4 years. I land in Cleveland with Tony Montero, and we grab a taxi the first night we're in town, and we're like, take us to the protests. And this cabbie, who we found out had 2 PhDs and a master's in history, philosophy, political science. He's very well educated. Best living he could make in Cleveland is driving a hack during the RNC. So here he is driving us around. He says, what protests? I said, they're coming at Cleveland to shut down the RNC. He laughed at us. I said, what are you laughing at? He said, there's not going to be any protests at the RNC. I said, what are you talking about? Trump, him, Hitler, all this crap. He said, nobody here is going to protest Trump. And I was stunned. Why? And he drove us around Cleveland, outside Cleveland, where here in New York, and we have across the Hudson River, framing the Hudson Valley, the lookout, you see the Palisades Mountains, nice green, beautiful, vistas. Say in Connecticut, Long Island, you've got Long Island Sound. Here, surrounding Cleveland, you've got the factories that people used to work in. That unlike here in New York, when they closed the factories, they didn't tear them down and send the steel to Japan or Korea or whatever to make cars and whatever. They left them standing. This is where people worked for generations. This is how they bought their houses and put their kids through college, had some dignity, built some equity, et cetera. Now they stand there mothballed and everybody looks at them. You got people, opioid crisis and cocaine, crack, every damn problem in the world, afflicting these people because they got no hope. They have nothing, nothing to hope for. Nobody's promising them anything. Nobody's trying to do anything for them. Trump comes along and says, I'm going to get your job back. Now, these are people who've been lied to more than most of us have by looking at their condition. And yet, they're acting on this. So I said, come on. They're not stupid, right? No, he said, no, they're not. No one else is promising to do anything for them. No one. Everyone else that's brought it up, Bill Clinton, now you have to go back to school and learn how to code or learn the new computer world and this and that. And there will be jobs for you someday. As it turns out, that's not true. Those jobs shrink. The computers are doing half of those jobs themselves now. And these people will not and they didn't. We saw one guy protest. There was a guy from the RCP, the Revolutionary Communist Party, who went there. He tried to. He saw some guys with MAGA hats or something. Decided to light a flag on fire in front of them to try to, whip up some kind of reaction. caught himself on fire is the only person that I know of that got arrested. They didn't. Why? See, this is the thing that when you're talking about the norm, people look at the voters that elected Trump, the voters in the Rust Belt, and they're not all white, by the way. And I would say if there's a majority of them that are white, it's a bare majority. Because the industrial proletariat in the Midwest, for example, was multiracial. It was not fair. You had all kinds of problems getting black folks into the unions until the mid-'60s, really, if not later. But all the automobile companies, all the others, this is a multiracial working class here that is destitute now as a consequence of deindustrialization. And they know it. You go to Gary, Indiana, you see the same thing you see in Cleveland. You go to all these different places. This is what is now as a consequence of what happened and to what was. When someone comes along and says, let us reindustrialize this country, there is a huge constituency for it. When you have people that are arguing against it, pointing to a virtual economy, to computerized trading of shares in corporations that the bulk of Americans don't own, and say that that's the economy and that this is a reaction to that, I have to laugh. And we'll see exactly what happens.
This normal that we're talking about here, Don, it is something that's the job of the elite, the job of the mainstream is to protect this thing, whatever that is. And it does evolve. We do create a new normal. We've seen it throughout COVID. We've seen this new normal of hey, we're all in this together, 2 weeks to slow the curve. That became a normal mantra that we're going to maybe have to go back to when the measles thing, whatever it is. But they're planting seeds with us of what is normal. Get this orange man out of office so we can get things back to normal. What is normal? What is the Western imperialism war machine, the Israel-U.S., the U.S. government captured by Israel, the war machine there around the Middle East? This is what normal is. And you mentioned Gaza. Like, what reality do we live in when you have this happening right now? This is Gaza today. This is Gaza today, right now. This is normal.
Yeah.
This is normal. At the same time, it's completely annihilated. These are people that lived in a neighborhood similar. We have neighborhoods here, and functioning society no longer exist. You guys want to see that scope one more time? This is the full 180 of this. This is it. This is normal. Meanwhile, you would think that something like this, when you talk about a protest organized this last weekend, here's an aerial view of the protest from, I believe this one is in Boston, but they were all over. There were like hundreds of them this weekend. You would think this was a response to that.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. This protest is a response to what? To hands off hands off NATO.
Hands off NATO.
Hands off.
Look,
our bodies, really? Because you guys
let's be real here.
Yeah.
Okay, what this is? Yeah. This is the fullest expression of the Democratic Party's organizing, of institutional organizing, of nonprofits and other groupings, and of the left, quote unquote, the actual anti-war movement. Were there any people from Answer or from various anti-war groups present under a sign that said that they support NATO?
No, they weren't allowed to be there, and we know this.
Okay.
We covered this early in the show, and I don't know if you've heard of this group. I wasn't as familiar with this group, but they posted this on their Instagram page, and we got a screenshot of it. This is there. I think this is called WHOA is the name of the group. I don't know if you've heard of it. Maybe I'm pronouncing. Maybe there's another way to say it. It's WHOA. So they were told the update is we were asked not to speak on Palestine, so we will not speak at all. This was coordinating with the hands-off organizers, that they had a condition and
Right.
only that they were going to participate. You can't talk about Palestine. So you can get all these people out in the street
Right.
doing the thing which we've been talking about. This is the conversation that needs to happen, Don. We're talking about how the media pins everything on this unstable leader who's power hungry and he's destroying our economy. And we have to get out in the masses and protest him. Meanwhile, we are demolishing every country in the Middle East, and Gaza is the worst by far. And every other country we're destroying at the same time. That's what's really happening. And this is the ultimate shot of normal. This is normal.
Yeah.
A war criminal literally getting the red carpet
There
treatment
you go, man.
the same weekend
Yeah.
that those protests are happening. And they can't connect the dots, not because they're stupid, because they've been programmed not to.
No,
They've
they
been
won't. They
brainwashed
won't
not
do
to.
it.
That's
They
the
won't do it.
game plan. That's
Listen.
the game plan.
So we got. I was trying to think of International Action Center, United for Peace and Justice, and Answer Coalition. These are three groups that are anti-war,
Yeah.
and serious anti-war organizing, and racial justice, a bunch of issues that are very important issues that have been doing it for years. If you turn out 1,500 people, 2,000 people, for what's been going on in Gaza or it's great. It's a lot of work and it's important work and people do it. This is all of a sudden over the stock market, over tariffs. People that can't spell fucking tariff are out by the tens of thousands or millions across the country. And this is supposed to be grassroots response to it. It's a crock of shit. This is the Democratic Party and the various nonprofits that are funded by the Democratic Party politicians turning out their constituents because they say you're going to lose funding, you're going to lose funding, you're going to lose funding. Some of it's true, a lot of it's not, and that's they're able to do that at the drop of a hat. Now, when you are murdering Gaza, okay, the population of Gaza, for some reason, they can't make those phone calls and get those people off their asses to come shut things down. When it's about this, when it's about tariffs, like when it was about emoluments, people that still can't spell emoluments were all up about emoluments back in January of 2017. Do you remember that? Most people don't even know what
yes.
an emolument is, but that was the end of the world. Then if you went back 8 years, Gaza was getting blown apart by the Bush administration.
Yep.
And people were asking Barack Hussein Obama, who made sure everybody knew his middle name was Hussein and wore it like a badge of honor and used it as bait for people to display their, Islamophobia. He said, well, you only have one president at a time. I can't say that the Israelis should stop bombing the shit out of these children because I'm not president yet. But I'll be president pretty soon. And what happened? Nothing. He sent them more bombs. And guess what? Now that he's not president, he's got a whole lot of stuff to say. But it still isn't stop bombing Gaza.
No. This is the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm out of time. I got to roll.
Yeah,
But
I got you. Yeah. Don, I appreciate you having this conversation. This is we need more people like you and having this discussion. This is what the mainstream media is trying to protect. They don't want us talking like this. They don't want us reaching across the aisles. In fact, I don't even like that term anymore, Don. Reaching across the aisle. What the hell does that even mean?
What aisle?
We have to hold hands with each other around the entire circle of people from the ground and start punching up together. That's what they don't want us to do. So when we have these discussions, we're doing the thing they don't want us to do. And we just need more of that. And that way people showing up to these protests, they're showing up to the wrong. They need to be showing up to the Palestine ones. They need to be showing up to the let's take down the whole system, not this one guy who just crazy, just uniquely so. Trump wants power. Nobody else ever did and never will again. It's just him. Get rid of him. Get things back to normal. So no to normal. We're gonna create our new normal.
Yeah.
Thank you, Don DeBar. Tell us where we can find you.
Let's see. In about 10 minutes, I'm thinking you're going to find me taking my dog down to the river. I'm on Facebook and on Twitter and Truth Social and YouTube and VK.com and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Don DeBar, the way you see it spelled over here. That's
we see it, Don. Thank you so much, Don. And I think you're going to be coming back with us. We're going to do our 100th episode next Thursday. Love to have you stop by and say hi on that one. It would be awesome.
I'll see you then. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Don.
Thank you, my friend. Take care, Matt. Be good, brother.
Don DeBar, everyone. Follow him on Truth Social, on Twitter, on all the stuff. He's got a YouTube channel as well. We've been on with him before. It's been fun. And he's mobile. He goes around. He goes to the story. That's the thing we've learned from Don DeBar is go to the story. Don't just report on it. Don't just have, discussions and dialogue and commentary, which we have to do that too. Obviously, we need to do commentary on everyday happenings, which I know you guys love that we do that, have debates, friendly debates, conversation. But when you can, go to the story. And that's what Don DeBar does. So we love him for that. Okay. Moving on, we do I will get to your guys' comments. We will do talking back soon. Let me do one more story, and then we'll get to talking back. We'll hold off on loudest voice, but I definitely need to do some World War III watch because this is really the fall of the empire, which we're talking about today, has everything to do with our foreign policy. And Martin Luther King figured that out in the last year of his life when he realized that all the stuff we try to do here at home, none of it matters if we're going to be these warmongering psychopaths around the globe. That foreign policy that informs how we treat our people here, how our economy works here, how our jobs work here, how everything works here, just how all of our cities are run, and the homelessness and our minimum wage and all of our benefit, everything being affected by how we treat the people in the rest of the world. So that's really the most important thing, and what we should be protesting more than anything else is how we treat the rest of the world. And then we can start treating the people here much better.